Hello viewers. Today's little video that we're going to have here to help you understand division of numbers is a supplement to hopefully knowing the skill, but if you struggle somewhat with it, hope this can help you. So if we look at two numbers that are going to be one dividing out the other, the number that's going to get split out or divided out is called the dividend, and the divisor is the worker, the one that breaks it out. Your answer that goes above the bracket is called the quotient. You can see division problems sometimes that look like this. It's your first number that goes in the bracket or your dividend. It's the second number that's your divisor or goes outside the bracket. And when we do anything of multiplying numbers, think of lining up the decimal, even if it's whole numbers. Say this was just a whole number, 4,515. I still have a decimal. Every whole number has a decimal. So I still line it up into my quotient. So that's an important thing as we add and subtract decimals. You should think of the same thing, that always lining up decimals is important. Only in multiplying decimals do we not worry about lining up decimals. So as this decimal is placed then here in this original number, I want to line it up to my quotient, so it's there if I need it. If it's a whole number and nothing as a partial or remainder of any decimal size, fine, you don't need the decimal in your answer, but it's there if I need it. So as we divide numbers out in this algorithm that I call DMSCBR, and a mnemonic device that a lot of people use does McDonald's sell cheap burgers reasonably, to remember the steps of this algorithm. So the first one, D, stands for divide. So I got to take the divisor and look at how many times it will go into the left side of your dividend. Always start on the left side. Will 21 go into 4 as any whole parts? No. So then I have to look farther. Now, if I put a 0 here because it didn't go into 4, that doesn't hurt anything. You can do that so you can remind yourself, I got to shift over to the next place. And so 45 is the number I'm looking at now. Will 21 go into 45? And you say yes. Well, if your math facts are really bad, go to a calculator so you understand what this algorithm does and say 45 divided by 21, how many holes would that be? And there's 2 holes that it would be able to go into. And then the second step says multiply that back. It's that one digit. It's only one digit in the quotient that ever gets multiplied back. So this 2 times 21 is 42. So now I have that set underneath the number that I just broke out. And so then my third step, S, means subtract. So I subtract 45 minus 42 leaves me 3 left over. And so then the C stands for check. This number, the difference, always needs to be smaller than the value of your divisor. If it's not, you need to change this to a larger number. If this number, say, was 21, 22, 23, after I did my difference and subtraction, that needs to be bumped up to a 3, and then redo your multiplying. But it is. 3 is less than 21, so I'm good. My check is good. I go to this step, which B stands for, is bring down. Bring down the next digit from this dividend, which is 1. And so now I have a new number. R means repeat the whole process over again. So now I'm going to say, how many times does 21 go into 31 as a whole? How many times will it go in there? Well, once it will go in there, so I place it there. So 1, here's our second step again. 1, not 21, just the 1, times 21 over here makes 21. Third step was subtract them. So I have 10 as a difference. Next step is check. Is 10 smaller than 21? Yep, we're good. So then my next step is bring down. I have a 5 here to bring down. So now repeat. So how many times will 21 go into 105? And again, if you need the calculator, 105 in your calculator divided by 21, it gives you the fact really quick of how many holes that would be. And if you did that, you would see that 5 holes go into, of 21s go into 105. So again, I multiply back out the 5 times 21, and I actually get this 105. And so 105 subtracted from 105 gives me nothing. So this is my goal, if I can get there when I divide numbers out, is have no leftovers, no remainders. But as sixth graders and on up in our education, we're not ever going to have R something as a remainder. We're either going to make it as a fractional partial part leftover or a decimal. In this case, it came out that we did have a decimal answer because of the decimal that moved straight up here, and that 5 became the tenths place as we kept dividing out digits and numbers. So we are finished with that. So it's telling me that 21 and a half times 21 would give me 451 and 5/10 or a half. And that came out what I call a clean decimal. We didn't have continuously going on and on trying to see what digit comes next in my quotient, which would be a running decimal or a repeating decimal. This one came out what I call clean. You came out with no leftover. Now, if we did need another one, let's just say, for instance, that this came out to be 2, and I have no more digits to bring down, I can always put in zeros. It doesn't change the value of that dividend. So I could drop down a 0 and then continue the process if I needed to. That's how you keep coming up with digits in your decimal number system to the right of that number, is just by continuously bringing down another 0, do your repeating of the algorithm, divide, multiply, subtract, check, and you just keep doing that. Sometimes that will eventually come to 0 down here, and sometimes it never will. So go out to as many places as expected for you. I usually say go to the hundreds, and that's usually far enough, but maybe another problem will say take it to the thousands or 10,000. So that's going to be up to you to listen to the instruction of how far I need to take that number. Okay, so let's change it up a little. And we have this number from our original number that we had. And let's say that we're dividing a number by a decimal now. So we have 451 and a half divided by 0.21 or 21 hundredths. Now this takes on a different approach to dividing. I can never divide a number, or a divisor can never be a decimal number. It always has to be a whole number. Dividends can be decimals, as we just demonstrated, but not the divisor. It has to be a whole number. So how do I make 0.21 into 21? So I have to shift the decimal to the right. And when I do that, it's going to come over here. How many places did I move it? I must always do that in the dividend also. So it's got to shift 2 places. Well, when I shift it 2 places, that leaves an empty place value that I replace with a 0. And now I've shifted everything 2 places to the right. Because I had to here, I've got to do it in the dividend also. So don't forget that. If I shift it here and I don't shift it here, I'm going to get a different value for a quotient or an answer. So I always must do both. So I've shifted it over, and I've shifted it over, and then what was it we always did before we start dividing? Line up the decimal into the quotient. Always remember to do that after I've shifted over. So I wouldn't have wanted to put it here yet till I was sure this is a whole number, and because I had to shift it over, now that decimal goes over there in alignment. So again, then I go through the process of DMSCBR, and I would come up with the same digits, but my numbers have been, my quotient I should say, is going to be different because of where that decimal now got placed. So it moved it over. So I'm going to have a number of, let's see, we said this was 42, multiplying it out. We had 3 left over, brought down the 1. I had a 1 go up there, brought down 21. We had 10, we had 105. We said that went 5 times, 105. We had nothing left over, but I still have this 0. Before I get to that decimal, I need to bring that 0 down. And how many times does 21 go into 0 is 0 times. You multiply that back out, and we then end up with that 0 as a remainder, so there's nothing farther we need to go. So that number earlier was different in the quotient because we didn't have the decimal originally in a different place in that divisor. But now that becomes this answer. In a calculator, if I would put in this original problem, when you put that in the calculator, 451 and 5/10 divided by 21 hundredths, you're going to get this answer. Because the calculator automatically moves the decimal. Just like we should learn in our brain how to do that, the calculator can do that for us. We're in the age of technology with calculators by our side all the time, but it's good to know what's that calculator doing, because if I push in wrong numbers, calculator's going to give what you push in. So remember where the decimal is when you put it into the calculator so you get that answer correctly. So I hope this little video will help you also if you're struggling with dividing numbers. Please use it as much as you need.